Donald Trump, has the odd sort of imperial spark, so he can show the world how powerful he is by bombing this, that, or the other country. But essentially, he's turning his back on the world that the US built and the imperial role that was embedded in that. Now, I don't want to blame all the problems in the world on Trump. He was obviously right to be concerned about European defence spending and national security spending. Trump is not the only person, isn't leading the only country to have had concerns about Chinese trade practices. There is the joke about Trump that he's the wrong answer to the right question. But, it's important to remember the question. Donald Trump was not created in a test tube. He's responding to real-world circumstances, and that's why he's been so successful. So the key question, I think, with Trump is how we should benchmark his policies and what that means for China and other countries. I mean, if you'd asked me 10 years ago, I would have said that the US was a predictable power, China unpredictable. These days, it's the opposite. I think China is a very predictable power. We know what they want. They want to be a globally dominant tech power. They want to do to the US what they think the US is trying to do to China, leverage with controlling technologies. That flows into, I think, the second objective, which is separate but related. China wants to be the dominant power in the Asia-Pacific. So everybody has to take account of their interests in every decision that they make. Now, to me, there is nothing remotely surprising about that ambition. In fact, it would be strange if it were otherwise, given China's history and size. The US, I think Trump has become unpredictable by design. You can argue this unpredictability is tactical. In other words, the direction of policy, at least in trade, is relatively clear. How he gets there, not so much. In fact, the funny thing is that Trump's diplomacy, I think, what does it remind you of? It reminds me of the old Chinese imperial system of tributary diplomacy. In other words, the emperor would demand that people come to court, give him gifts, and once they'd given him gifts and sort of, confirm their inferior status, they would be, patted on the head, allowed to go away and live in peace. Trump is doing much the same. I don't know how else you describe the sort of conga line of people going to the White House, knocking on the door and offering them deals. I mean, it's humiliating, but it's meant to be. And the one country that ironically has not played that game is China itself, because China has leverage, in this case critical minerals, and it's using them. Trump is playing a tariff game, China is playing a supply chain game, and I think that is far more effective.